Oi! Budge!
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 We're going to talk today about why is my boss so bad.
The stories are endless.
People are more likely to quit a job due to toxic culture rather than pay.
So many of them get thrown into the deep end.
Are they really a bad leader, or is it you?
Some of the best leaders that I've worked with have been the ones that have been showing kindness and compassion and empathy.
If you're worried about being a bad boss, you're already on your way to being a much better boss.
You can learn just as much from a bad boss as you can a great one as well.
Welcome to Budge, How to Fudge Being Human. Thank you, Sonia, our guest Sonia. I'll introduce in a minute. How to Fudge Being a Human, the podcast that helps you through behavioural science, psychology and nudge theory to better fake being a human. As always, I'm joined by Dr. Darren Coppin, behavioural scientist, writer, speaker, lover, and of course the original fifth wiggle, the beige one. How are you, sir?
I'm lovely. It's
You
more
are
grey
lovely.
than beige, but anyway, thank you. Mr. Paul Miles, Managing Director of the Busy Group, one of Australia's largest training, employment and education organisations, and Paul Miles, whose surname is actually a bastardisation of Milosevic.
That's not true, right? Okay.
Your uncertainty tells me lots.
We are very lucky today. We have a fantastic guest today. We have Sonia McDonald, CEO and founder of Leadership HQ. And you've already told me not to do this big long introduction about how you're in the top 100 entrepreneurs and 200 influential females and all this amazing stuff. You've written 3 books. You speak.
So you're doing it anyway, basically.
Gosh!
The introduction that
I
I'm
told
not
you
allowed
not
to
to.
give you. Okay, I'm not giving it. I won't
Such
say
a bloke
anymore.
thing to do.
I won't say anymore. Anyway, you know lots about leadership and bad bosses.
I know, lots.
But you can find Sonia on LinkedIn, look up Leadership HQ. So we're going to talk today about why is my boss so bad. Before we do that though, please like, comment, subscribe. You can find us on YouTube, Apple and Spotify and every social media platform, particularly now TikTok. Sonia, thanks for coming along today and putting up with us.
Now I'm regretting it. No, I'm kidding. No, you know I'd do anything for you. I did say that when you asked. I said
Bless
anything
you.
for you.
Thank you. No, thank you. And I know you're very busy at the moment because things are just going so well for Leadership HQ. So we thought we'd kick off. We're going to talk today about why is my boss so bad and some of the reasons around the behaviour, the psychology of their behaviour, and some of the things you could do to actually help yourself. But we thought we'd kick off because you would have come across so many bad bosses in your Leadership HQ work. Do you have a particular story that jumps out that you go, I probably shouldn't talk about this, but...
That's really interesting. Yes, I have. In my career, even before I started Leadership HQ
that's a good way of hiding it.
and also during my
And the
time.
fact that it's about Paul.
Yes, yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything, but now that you've opened up that can of
Right.
worms, we might as well talk about that.
Okay, this does feel like a psychology session.
I think it's. I suppose that's one of the hugest drivers for the work I do is because I want to. Where our mission is to build a world of great leaders because we see the difference great leadership does, but and has, and I think that we realise that we don't want to work for bad bosses. In saying that, we do learn a lot from bad bosses, but in terms of stories, gosh, I've had bosses in my career. This is in my career who have growled at me.
Growled?
Yep, growled at me because they didn't like me or didn't. Yeah.
That's bizarre.
It was very, very I've had leaders.
I've got a performance management idea.
She ended up. Everyone didn't like her in the team, so it took the actual director a long time to let her go. In terms of over the 17 year or nearly 17 years I've had Leadership HQ and I've been living and breathing this space, it's probably one of the things that probably affects us most is when we actually work with people, with bosses that we work with them in our leadership programs or in our coaching, or when we actually are coaching people or they're in our leadership and they're talking to us about their bad bosses and the impact it's having on them.
Yeah.
You know, I've had leaders say to me in programs, I don't need to be on this because I'm already a great leader. And they're not.
Because you would love that, given your talks about humility and courage,
Yeah.
being courageous. Yeah.
I've had leaders go, I don't even care about people. So, and I'm like, whoa, but you're leading a massive team.
Is that when you put them through the psychopathy?
Psychopathy.
Psychotherapy. And put them in the psychopath bracket.
assessment,
Yeah.
That could be a new good program.
Yeah.
Programs for psychopaths.
Yeah.
Leadership's. Anyway,
You'd have to admit you're a psychopath first. That's all.
that's very true. You'd have to
Well,
admit
your
that.
staff would nominate you.
There could be a nomination
Yeah.
process. I think we'd get lots of people
Yeah.
nominating their
Yeah.
bosses, but the amount of leaders that lead by fear, bullying.
Yeah.
It's just the stories are endless, and the impact that bad and poor leadership has is just. It's just.
Oh, it's profound.
It's profound. Yeah.
Absolutely profound. Yeah, no, my favourite. I used to have a boss when things got really bad, and there was a lot of pressure on. The go-to would be go and do the dishes and clean the kitchen in the office, and not actually tackle the issue. So there could be something really serious going down you've got to deal with, but you go and find this leader, literally filling the washing machine in the kitchen.
Oh, so you didn't know how to cope with it.
Yeah, that was the go-to, and you're like, what do we do? Yeah. Darren, you sort of come up with some of the psychology around this. Why do people, do people, are there that many bad bosses out there? And can we do any better than these guys? Are these bad bosses actually as bad as we all think?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because are bosses that bad? Or now we know that the old adage, you don't quit a job, you quit a bad boss.
Yeah.
And it's backed up by MIT Sloan research that says that people are more likely to quit, 10.4 times more likely to quit a job due to toxic culture rather than pay. But are they really that bad? Because there's this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect associated with illusory superiority, where we all think we're a bit brighter than we really are. Now, what's interesting, people that of lower intelligence tend to think they're much more intelligent than they are, but they don't think they're up there. They think they're sort of average and what have you. But you think you're better at something than somebody else. And we all know the bore. Now I'm really looking at you, Paul, at a dinner party where they say, "Oh, what do you do?" Our Western world opener, and you tell them what you do for a job, and then they spend the next hour telling you more about your job and how they're more of an expert at your job than you are.
I've had that so many times. This is what you should do with Busy, and they've never been there or
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite strange when I've had it a few times that's happened.
And that's the manifestation of this illusory superiority. People think they know better. So is your boss really that bad, or are you being a little bit unfair?
Yeah. So, mate, you come up with 6 issues relating to bosses and why we have this, why people become poor at leadership. Do you want to maybe just run through some of these issues that I identified?
Yeah, because it's so hard for a boss, because you've got these dichotomies where they have to be empathetic but not a pushover.
Yeah.
And in fact, empathy is draining, where you feel with someone rather than feel for them. It's one of the key things of contributors to burnout. And they have to provide you with absolute certainty, because we crave that as humans, and we crave it in our leaders. We want the safety and the certainty, but they have to be massively adaptable and flexible and change. So you have, that's why people perhaps like Trump. Oh, I'm going to do this and this and this, and he never necessarily follows through on anything, but that doesn't diminish his popularity. And even Churchill and other leaders from the past, you can say we're absolutely, we will fight them on a video, we will do this and do that, and then they totally flip and change and do a 180, but people still follow them because they want that. So it's not easy for bosses, but there are in modern working environments. I managed reading up on this subject. Why is my boss so bad? There were 6 key issues. So you guys jump in.
And I should point out one of your chapters in your forthcoming book.
Yes, in 7 years' time when it comes out.
Sonia's going to have another 5 by then.
I don't think I will, but I can't wait for your book. I hope it is a chapter.
There's 6 chapters on Paul. But anyway, so one of the main issues these days is time. We don't have time to train people up well. We don't have time to learn about performance management very well, which is one of the greatest eroders of well-being at work, is how a manager performance manages others. And why people feel bullied, or why people feel that the manager's mollycoddling somebody that's underperforming, and they're having to carry all the slack. So,
and this would be something you would come across all the time, and Busy is a great example. You ran a program for us a few years ago, and I kept saying, let's do it again, and we never actually did it because you get caught up with other things. Did you? I'm going to assume that you would find lack of training to be a constant issue you come across in your leadership development programs.
I definitely do, because I think people see it as a nice to have, not a must have. So when COVID hit in particular, I was like, well, let's get rid of the marketing and training. It's like, well, actually, when we're going through crises, you need to focus on particularly the leadership development, because leaders don't have, especially when there is uncertainty or adversity, don't know how to deal with those things. But the lack of training, it's so many of them get thrown into the deep end. And they're like, well, I don't know how to lead people. I don't know how to show empathy. I'm not saying everyone's like that. I don't know how to performance manage, which was one of the things that you had said as a mate. I don't know how to lead other people. Like, this is and it's the behavioural stuff that they don't understand to lead as well. So I definitely think the lack of training is a big one. And also that the ability to invest in their own self-development. So if the company's not giving them the training, what can you do to, have that, invest in your own self-development to be a great leader, because it's a great responsibility, but it's imperative. I've seen the difference in the transformation when organisations like you did invest in their leadership.
Yeah,
it makes a huge difference.
I was telling another podcast that you ran this program a few years ago, and now we literally have people in general manager positions. Someone's gone off to a small CEO position somewhere. We've got 3 or 4 people in leadership positions in government, all as an outcome of the program that you ran for the Busy organisation, so it makes a huge difference.
But I think it's like they don't know what they don't know.
Yep.
So it's giving that awareness to give them tools and skills around how to be better in this space, so that it's just giving them those tools.
To back that up, it's known as the Peter Principle, although it should be renamed the Paul Principle.
Absolutely.
Is people are promoted to their level of incompetence, which of course they are. But of course you're going to be promoted until you're doing something that's new, but then you expect them to suddenly be amazing and brilliant at it in a management position without giving them the support of training or mentoring, because again, we don't often have the time to mentor people appropriately. But there's also a good reason, the second key reason that bosses face, or we might think that bosses are bad, is a good reason. It's because we're more egalitarian now. We feel more equal. We feel that we've got a voice more, whereas before we'd mutter and joke and have a moan at each other down the pub about our stupid boss. Now, but we couldn't do anything about it because that was above our station. Now there isn't this ceiling on our station. We can all become bosses, and it's actually a positive thing. But of course, it makes us more dissatisfied and critical with bosses.
I'm going to ask Sonia to talk about the third on your list, because this is such a key thing: is empathy. Empathy. Maybe Darren, if you could explain why this is an issue first of all.
Yeah, but I've read a lot of good stuff by, for example, Professor Tanya Singer and what have you. But really, I've focused on this when trying to build resilience in your sector, Paul, education, training, and employment. Is that it turns out that there's a lot of turnover of staff because they're empathetic. That's one of their greatest strengths. And empathy, and there are books on the empathetic leader, and it enables you to think where other people are coming from, and that enables you to communicate better, gather them together and push forward as a leader. But empathy has a subtle difference with compassion, and it can make you excessively conscious of what others are thinking and feel worried or afraid or adopt their emotions and feelings.
Is this something you've come across a lot, Sonia? This notion that we're all supposed to be empathetic, we're also supposed to be assertive, I suppose, as well. There seems to be this challenge with leadership, that how you manage your empathetic side and your assertive side,
And it's something that I live and breathe now around that kindness. Kindness is a superpower, and I think there is absolutely now a new wave of a leadership style around empathetic leadership. But I always say people see it as a weakness.
I think even on LinkedIn today, I think I saw something about when you were saying what stops you using kindness, and one of them was actually people do view kindness and empathy, I suppose, as a weakness.
Yeah, and studies show that if a man is considered empathetic, his career suffers.
Wow.
So it's a fact, it's a statistically validated fact. But there is that subtle difference.
Yeah.
We need empathy, but rather we need to turn it into compassion and kindness and
Yeah.
wield it appropriately.
And I think there is absolutely, I think there's a really pertinent point there that you can still be strong and assertive as a manager or leader, but still show kindness and compassion. I think that people think that they're separate entities and they can actually work really well together. It's the leaders that are too focused on results and being drivers and that don't have that empathy and compassion. I think we're seeing a shift now where it needs to be definitely more leaning towards both, and that's why especially the kindness and empathy. Some of the best leaders that I've worked with over the last 17 years now that we've been doing the work that we've been doing have been the ones that have been showing kindness and compassion and empathy, but still not taking their eye off the ball when it comes to results
But that's a
and
massive
accountability.
point, is that narcissists and sociopaths are more likely to be, and there's a subtle difference,
Yeah.
but more likely to be leaders. And in fact, men are more likely to be narcissistic, 40% more likely to have narcissism syndrome. Again, looking at you, Paul. But people like that in their leaders. But it's short-term to medium-term sustainable. For longer-term leadership, you need that kindness, compassion, and consideration to be a great leader.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Isn't there some statistic about 3 or 4% of leaders, or 3 or 4% of people are narcissistic or sociopaths, and then that actually is higher in
Tenfold higher in senior
CEOs.
managers. Yeah.
This leads quickly to your fourth point, Darren, which is stress management. Because of course, one of the things, empathy goes when we're under pressure. How have you identified stress management to be the key issue around that?
It's from some personal experience interviewing nearly 500 staff of a large organisation in Australia, the Roaders and Builders Wellbeing. But we noticed when we went in, and we'd always see the regional manager first before talking to all their staff. And when that person came into the meeting, invariably late, they go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Things are crazy around here. I don't know how I'm handling it all." Then the rest of their staff had exactly the same sort of levels of stress and anxiety. But when that leader came in and said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so late," invariably late still, but anyway, I'm here now, what's this about, let's talk, and they had a calmer, better way of managing stress, than the rest of their staff had better stress management. And I think what this does practically is suggest that if you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck, it's investing in toolkits for mental health, stress management, resilience and performance management with your leaders, and then that cascades to the rest of the staff.
The fifth point that you've raised, the Dilbert principle, which I'm sure again Sonia would have come across a lot, is that we create bad bosses because we move them laterally. We move people into supervisory roles to either get them out of the way, or because they're a good operator, therefore they're good at their job, therefore they're going to be a good leader. Do you come across this a lot?
Yes, I do. Actually, I use a different term. It's the Darth Vader of leadership, even though Darth Vader did have some okay qualities. He definitely is that leader.
Why do you call it the Darth Vader as opposed to Delbert?
Like it's like the whole like. It's like
boss, isn't it?
The boss that you don't know what to do with, but you're too scared of him, so you just move him. It's like you're like, I'll just move him across, or we'll put him here or put him there. We're not getting rid of.
Just let these people can suffer for the next year.
I thought you meant they say to everyone, "You are my son." That's what I associate Darth Vader with. You're but no.
I do come across that a lot where, again, because I'm a great believer that leaders lead the culture and the culture leads the strategy, and if you walk past the behaviour you won't accept, if you keep walking past it, your organisation's not going to shine or grow because you keep keeping these, is it Duncan? What is it? The Dilbert, the Darth Vader.
Yeah.
In the organisation, this is where you need to get these leaders off the bus. Yeah,
Absolutely. And the last one on the list, mate, is founder syndrome, where one of the challenges we have is the great visionaries that create these marvelous businesses are not necessarily great managers.
Yeah, exactly. It takes very different personalities to start up and drive a business, and perhaps this is where the narcissism comes from, is that and control freakism. And as a founder of a business that I then sold to a larger organisation, I didn't realise what a control freak I was until I had to let go of responsibilities as it grows and grows. So great founders are rarely great leaders. Initially, they can be great figureheads, great visionaries, but they need to know when to bring in people beneath them as they grow to run things properly.
So we like to help people fudge how to be human, Dazza. So maybe we can offer some ideas then, and I'm sure Sonia would have lots of these. If you have a bad boss, how can you tackle that issue? So you've got a bad boss, their boss doesn't want to do much about it, they just want to move them around the company, they're still there. What do you do if you have a bad leader?
Well, again, it's that consideration. Are they really a bad leader? Or is it you with anticipate or unrealistic expectations? Or is the thing that you're considering them being a bad leader actually out of their control? So you're being unfair. What were you going to say? I could see your eyes widen.
I was agreeing because I think sometimes we don't know what it's like until we've stepped in their shoes. So sometimes I think we can be really tough on our managers and leaders, and then when they do exit, then they move into their roles, they go, oh, maybe I should have been a little bit more empathetic. I didn't realise it was a lot tougher than I thought it would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And there's that managing up that you might have to do if you've got a really bad leader. You might need to build their confidence. I really enjoyed the way you said that, because they're lacking in confidence, particularly if they're new leaders. They might be lacking in confidence, or if they're being bad at delegating because they're uncomfortable with telling other people what to do, which a lot of us as humans are. We're good at our job, we get promoted, then we've got to tell other people what to do, is help them out by saying, I really love doing that project and this data analysis or creating these infographics. If you've got any more of that, I'd love to do it and take it off your plate. So it feels weird that you've got to manage up sometimes, but it's just human relationships, human interactions, general cultural and social norming. But then sometimes we're making excuses here generally. Sometimes your bosses are just bad. Walk away.
Walk away. Would you recommend walking away, or would you try and manage up?
It really depends on if you really love what you're doing and you really love the purpose and you really love the organisation. Eventually, bad bosses leave. You'd hope they will. I mean, if it gets that bad, obviously I would go and definitely speak to HR. We spend a lot of time when we work with individuals that have bad bosses, helping them be the change they want to see. So it's kind of like circle of influence, circle of control. So, you can't control the behaviour of the bad boss or leader. You can definitely help build their confidence or manage up, but be the change you want to see. So if they're not being great, they're not being the best they can, you be the best that you can be. So that's the control you have, that's the influence that you have within yourself. So, and also sometimes I say to the leaders that we work with, why don't you put this article on your boss's desk and maybe go, there's an interesting article on empathetic. This is an interesting article on how to be a better boss. Maybe you need to lead up with, coach up with, but look, I think it's don't let it impact your brand. I think that's really important. And the thing is, you can learn just as much from a bad boss as you can a great one as well. So
that's the key thing, isn't it? Yeah, you can learn what not to do.
Yeah. But again, if it gets to a point where, and I have definitely had experience myself and worked with people that experience it gets that bad, report it to HR. You've got a choice: either stay, improve, remove, or accept. It's just talk to HR about it, because I just don't think you just need to tolerate that sort of, if it is getting that bad where it's impacting you and the team and the organisation. Yeah.
I like to put Darren on the spot at the end of these podcasts, but I'm going to do it to you, Sonia, in a minute.
Great.
I'm going to ask you in a minute, somebody who's about to go into leadership position and they are scared of becoming a bad boss, what's the key things you advise on how to become a good leader, I suppose, as opposed to a bad boss? Before we do that, though, and wrap up, Darren, mate, Dr. Darren, thank you as always. It's been a joy listening to your advice. If you like what you're listening to or watching, please give us a subscribe on YouTube. or Spotify, or Apple, or connect with us on any of the social media platforms. Sonia, thank you so much for joining us. In terms of then of that final piece of advice, what would you say to somebody who's about to become a leader and doesn't want to become the bad boss they might have experienced?
Self-development.
Yeah.
Focus on your own self-development. Grab some leadership books.
And you know 3 good ones?
I've got a few, but I've got plenty more that I could recommend. Definitely, you can read articles. Harvard's got some, I love Harvard. Start learning about leadership now. Start to learn who you are. I think that self-awareness and self-discovery is so important, because the more you know about yourself and what you stand for and who you are, the more you know about others. Go to leadership programs, leadership training, get a coach, get a mentor. Start learning leadership now, because the difference you can make. I mean, I don't believe that leadership's a role or title, but if you do get that title, if that's, and you are leading people and teams, the influence, impact you have is fundamental. So you want to be the best you can be. So start learning leadership now, because you can learn it.
Awesome advice.
I was just going to add, if you're worried about being a bad boss, you're already on your way to being a much better boss.
Which
the people that worry about it.
Self-development.
Yeah.
And you're going to take action about it. So it means you're already empathetic or compassionate, and you're going to self-improve. So
It's a really good point.
Thank you both. Thank you, Darren. Thank you,
Thanks.
Sonia.
Thank you.
You can connect with Sonia at Leadership HQ and just search Sonia McDonald on LinkedIn, and you will find many, many thousands of other people following you. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode.